Hello, my name is Zahara Almosawi, and this is my contribution to the Content for Living Writers YouTube channel for my English 579 course at San Diego State University. To begin, in our class, we have read several poetry books that have touched on the themes of culture and identity to great lengths. So I will be exploring these significant themes throughout my video response today. Throughout every book that we have read this semester, I saw the themes of culture and identity as repetitive and prevalent themes that were intricately woven into each one of our books. In some way or shape, these poetry books were all reflective on the individual author and their lives. In their poems, these authors openly and honestly wrote about their life stories. And they not only shared these stories, but they took it a step further. They took their readers on an emotional journey alongside with them. And as readers, we eagerly read through their poems and we read about their lives. And by doing this, we were able to tap into the unique identity of each author. It's truly fascinating to read the work of an author. And each author is so different. They're individually complex and multifaceted. They bring their own world perspective and experiences, and then they just bring it to life through their writing. And our authors have shared all sorts of stories, which have ranged on every side of the spectrum. This goes from the very happy and cheerful moments that they've experienced, but it also goes to the sad and unpleasant moments. For example, in Heart Like a Window, Mouth Like a Cliff, we read about Sara Borjas' immense pride that she has about her hometown Fresno. In her poem, What I Know About Fresno, she wrote adoringly about Fresno. And she stated the following lines on page 24. She states, "The rims are the pride I feel when I say Fresno." And through these lines, we get the sense of ultimate pride and gratitude that she holds for her hometown. And this just gives us a further and in-depth understanding of Borjas' own culture and identity. Now, on the other hand, in Worlds of Wonders, we read about the harsh and unpleasant moments that Amy Nazakamatil and her family experienced as a brown family who lived in a predominantly Caucasian town. In her poem, Catalpa Tree, she reveals the severe racism that her and her family experienced. This is seen especially when she describes her mom's work environment on page 3. She states the following lines to describe it. She says, "How her day was spent trying to help patients who often hurled racist taunts and violent threats against her. Get out of here, or I'll choke you with my own hands." Here we get a very personal and vivid description of the violence that was hurled at her family. And this violent treatment was based solely on their culture and their darker skin complexion. So again, here we see how we get to understand the author's culture and identity through their writing. I want to take an even closer look specifically on Borjas and her book. Even though I do not personally know Borjas, I feel like I know her very well after reading her book. She perfectly expressed her entire life, culture, and identity all throughout her poems. And Borjas did not hold back in her writing. Instead, she boldly shared it all. For me, I closely identified with Sara Borjas and the themes that resonated from her writing. I even found some overlap in our cultures and identity. Although Borjas writes about being Mexican American, I can still relate to her as being Iraqi American. In the same sense, we both grew up as brown girls that were raised in America. And we both come from culturally different backgrounds, ones that clash with that of the typical American culture. For Borjas specifically, she repeatedly wrote about the term pucha all throughout her poems. Borjas described the word as a condescending term that meant you were not considered to be fully Mexican. Borjas further elaborated on this term in her poem, Pucha Café. In this poem, she juxtaposed her Mexican culture alongside her American culture. This delineated the large differences between them. She makes witty commentary to further point out these differences between the two cultures. For example, on page 37, she stated the following lines. She says, "Here we use Cholula, not homemade salsa. We'll serve corn tortillas with your bacon and eggs." And then she also says further on, enjoy a quesadilla with American cheese. So throughout these lines, she's being very sarcastic because according to this poem, only Puchas would use Cholula instead of homemade salsa, and only Puchas would use American cheese in their quesadillas. So essentially, Borjas writes about how the people around her, and even including herself, considered her to be culturally in between her Mexican side as well as her American side. And in that very same sense, I have had a similar experience with my own family. To the rest of my family, I'm considered too Americanized and too removed from my Iraqi side. So just like Borjas, I have been called condescending names that label me as too American. They say that I talk too Americanized, and they comment on the American accent that I have when I speak Arabic. They also say that I dress too Americanized since I wear skinny jeans and t-shirts. They also say that I eat too Americanized since I eat food like sandwiches and fries. They comment on how my lifestyle is too different from that of an authentic Iraqi person. So just like Borjas, I find myself in this in-between space for my cultural identity. Borjas is Mexican-American, and I'm Iraqi-American. Similarly, Borjas and I are trying to maintain the balance of both of our clashing cultures while simultaneously wanting to proudly represent our cultures through our identities. So for my YouTube content video, I wanted to delve into my Iraqi culture. When it comes to culture, there are numerous layers that we could discuss. There are the layers of food, language, customs, and so many more. For my video, I wanted to focus on the food aspect of my culture. So I filmed a video making one of my absolute favorite Middle Eastern dishes called falafel. Now this one is my mom's family recipe, which has been in the family for generations. And I'm so happy to share this recipe with you all. And falafel, it's considered a staple in the Iraqi culture. It's a meal that's commonly enjoyed and eaten by all. I feel like this recipe will represent the pride and adoration that I have for my culture. As an Iraqi American, I hold both my Iraqi and American side closely. It's a hard balance, but I'm genuinely proud of both sides of my culture. They come together to form my personal identity. So with that being said, I hope you will enjoy this recipe, and thank you so much for watching and for listening. Thank you. Bye.
So the first step in making the falafel is to get all the ingredients ready. So in this pot we have 2 cups of chickpeas and we have 3 packs of cilantro. In here we have 1 full garlic, and then we're going to be using these ingredients in our food processor to grind it all together to make the mixture. So you'll just grab all the ingredients. And you just mix it until it's the right consistency and texture that you want it. And then you'll just repeat that process until you have as much of the mixture as you'd like. So we've just now completed grinding the rest of the mixture, and now we're going to start adding in some seasoning. So we'll start by adding a half a tablespoon of salt. And then we're also going to be adding a half a tablespoon of baking powder. And then a half a tablespoon of cumin. And now that we have the seasoning in, we're just going to mix it all in together into the mixture. And then we're also going to add a few dashes of some more seasoning, and this time here is turmeric. And so now we're just mixing in all the seasoning in with the mixture. So the next step is just to grab your mixture and put it into, mold it into circular balls. And then we'll just grab it and put it onto a pan in the oil. And then you'll just let it cook on the pan for a few minutes, and then you'll flip it over and let the other side cook as well. And now we're just going to flip it over so it can cook on the other side. And then as they're done cooking, we're just going to take them out after they've been cooked on both sides. You want to take them out once they start to get a little more brown and color in them. So this is the final result of our falafel recipe. You can eat it alone, you can have it with some bread, salad, or however you'd like. But thank you for watching this recipe on how to make falafel.